So I'll be honest. You know, I'm a Kostenvo truther, right? You know that. I'm far above the curve on that. I was ahead of people more than you were on Silovs for sure. Kostenvo didn't love his camp. I didn't think he moved like he did last year. But I think getting some time to work with Ian Clark, maybe these are certain things to just kind of get some little tips here and there to bring back to Harvard. I just didn't. I wasn't blown away like I was when I saw him at 18 years old last year at development camp. The other goalies, Ty Young, I thought he got better as the camp went on. First couple of days, he was getting beat a lot in drills on pretty easy shots. I thought he got better as the week went on. And I like his pads. He's got the Rocky Mountains on his pads and his blocker and his glove. Pretty little cool little thing there. And it looks like it's drawn on with pencil or something. So he's going back to Prince George. Should be their starter next year. I know he took that role in the playoffs. And I know that there was a little bit of a battle between him and and Sawyer Minio because he was with the Thunderbirds last year. And then Young was with the Cougars. And they got swept like in the first round of the WHL final. And I know there's, Ty Young was trying to get him back a little bit here for that sweep, but he ended up, Minio beat him in the shootout, which was kind of funny. But then the big guy was Nikita Tolopilo. Like, this dude looks the part. Okay. This guy, oh man, he is all 6'6" of him. Like I stood next to him and he is very tall. He's the tallest player that was at this camp. He's extremely athletic as well. Like I think there's something here with this guy, and the fact that he's now going to be able to work with Ian Clark as well as Marco Torrenius. Like, whoo! I just, you look at him, and it's what do you always say? You just watch him move. Like, Tolopilo moves extremely well, man. I don't know what you saw in the game. I think he pitched a shutout in the one period that he played when you were watching, anyways. But yeah, I liked him throughout camp. I thought he was the best goalie, head and shoulders, not just physically, but on the ice as well, above everybody else.
I think his movement could become more efficient, and I think that's going to be the name of the game for Tolopilo over the next little bit. He's a little more raw than I thought he was, because like that was my first viewing of him, right? I think his movement is going to become more efficient, and look, the proof's in the pudding. We've seen guys like Arturs Silovs. I said the exact same thing about him when he was younger, when he was coming in. Very raw talent, tons of natural abilities, which is what Ian Clark looks for in these goaltenders and what Ian Clark really wants to work with in these goaltenders. I'm curious to see where Tolopilo gets the most time because, look, I've given the take for months now that I didn't think the Canucks were going to go get a veteran backup for the NHL level. I thought they were going to roll with Demko, Spencer Martin as your backup, and then if Martin falls or Demko goes down with an injury, you've got Silovs on an ELC. You can bring them up and down. It doesn't really matter. You can even have them do spot duty if you want. That's going to be a main topic of the article that I'm writing for Canucks Army right now. But back to Tolopilo, you look at the AHL situation, and if your two NHL goaltenders are Thatcher Demko and Spencer Martin, then that leaves Silovs, Sawchenko, and Tolopilo as your AHL, not even tandem because it's three of them, your rotation of goaltenders. But I don't think those guys will get rotated, Chris. I want you to think back, and to all the listeners, think back to what we saw at the start of the 21-22 season when Michael DiPietro, Spencer Martin, and Arturs Silovs were all down in the AHL. And if you think further back than that, Silovs spent time in the ECHL on loan while DiPietro and Martin were the two goaltenders in Abbotsford. So if they're going to roll with three goaltenders, this is how I see it playing out, Chris, is Sawchenko was a guy, 25 years old. He's going to be either in the AHL or the ECHL. I don't think he's a guy that could challenge to be the backup. But then again, I thought the exact same thing as Spencer Martin. Came to the Canucks at a similar age as Sawchenko. This is a guy that likes Ian Clark. This is a guy that Ian Clark likes. I'm curious to see, Chris, what happens with Sawchenko, but I think it's pretty safe to say that between Tolopilo and Sawchenko, the minutes are going to be very limited to start the year. I think we're going to see Silovs play a ton, and I don't know if we're going to see either Sawchenko or Tolopilo play much in that first 2 months of the AHL season, Chris. I'm really curious to see who they go with. No, you're shaking your head. This is what happens is they learn in practice the systems and everything that they're going to be learning and playing with. That's what happens. They don't throw these guys in. It doesn't happen.
You're forgetting something very crucial here. The AHL plays back-to-back nights every week. They're not going to
Yes.
be running Silovs, you know,
You're
12
right.
out of 13 starts where he's starting back to back all weekends. Like,
Yep.
because of the AHL schedule, you need to play your backup. You're not
You,
going unless you believe your goal, unless you have a goalie the caliber of Dustin Wolf, which listen, Silovs maybe takes a step to get close to that. He's not at that right now. You have to play the backup in the AHL.
if they're going to play those Wednesday, Friday games and those Wednesday, Sunday games or whatever, they have those in the AHL schedule. So yes, there are more back-to-backs in the AHL schedule, but it's not every week. You go look at the AHL schedule. They don't do a back-to-back every single week. There are a lot.
Probably
But what I'm trying to say,
80% of weeks.
you cut out. What'd you say?
Like 80% of the weekends are back to backs, I'd say. 80%.
80. We'll look at the AHL schedule and we'll figure it out, map it out for you. What I'm trying to say, the point stands that Silovs is going to be the guy out in Abbotsford, and I don't think, okay, let's pick one. Let's pick one. It doesn't matter, right? Let's pick a guy. Let's say it's Tolopilo. Okay, Tolopilo is your backup. Okay, Sawchenko's probably not playing very much. Sawchenko's your backup. Okay, Tolopilo is not playing very much. I don't think they'll put one of those guys in the ECHL. I think it'll be just like what we saw with Martin, DiPietro, and Silovs down there, where at that point, DiPietro and Silovs were picking up the bulk of the starts, and Martin made, I think, like 3 starts over the first 2 months of the season. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see one guy really them zero in on teaching that guy the technique and all that stuff that they want to learn. But what interests me about this, Chris, is that it's 2 new guys. It's 2 new guys. So how are they going to pick who plays more, right? Like, it's a really interesting situation down in Abbotsford. One thing is clear. It's going to be Silovs as the starter. I'm just curious how they go about teaching Tolopilo, a prospect they're high on, and Sawchenko, who I would say at best turns into Spencer Martin, who's an NHL backup, right? Like, how do you juggle that? Like, which guy doesn't play? Because I don't think they're both going to play. If you, like you said, you brought up the back-to-back, sure. Silovs is still playing the bulk of the games. So who's getting the shot, right? I don't know.
I think that it's going to depend if Tolopilo is for sure the backup. If he's not for sure, better than what's it, Sawchenko? Yeah, like I don't see him being more than the 5th goaltender. I can see them keeping him in Abbotsford, like as the 3rd goaltender. I can see Abbotsford having 3 goalies, but it's going to require Tolopilo being able to at least get 1 game every week, right? It's going to be him getting one of those weekend games every single week. If he's not, and he's the 3rd goalie, he'll be down in the ECHL, but they're not going to send Sawchenko down to the ECHL. He's been around. He's fine. He's fine to sit there and not do anything. The Canucks, there's going to be one of the 4 goalies in front of them be injured at some point, or whatever's going to happen at some point to these guys. Like, that's what I think Sawchenko's here. I really just think of him as depth in the organization. I think that's what he's going to be down there in Abbotsford. Like, he'll be there. I could see them going through the first month and a half of the season and him not getting a start. I can see him backing up some night, because we did see that. You brought up the Spencer Martin, his first little bit here with Abbotsford where he wasn't playing. Like, he would back up some nights. They would give DiPietro a full night off. Like, don't even worry about warm up. Don't worry about being the backup. Full night off for you. Go enjoy it, eat some popcorn, hang out with Jimmy Rutherford, do all those type of things. But like, I can see that being the situation with Sawchenko, because I think they want Tolopilo to be able to establish himself as at least like the 4th goalie on the depth chart next season. And if he's not able to do that, he'll be in the ECHL. They won't keep 3 goalies if Tolopilo is the 3rd string guy. They'll move him down to the ECHL because he needs to play. But he will play if he's in the backup position, which I project next year, because I do think that he's going to be the backup in Abbotsford next season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think Tolopilo is so raw that it'll be interesting to see how they kind of manage that. Because look, Sawchenko and Tolopilo are going to want to learn the techniques and all that sort of stuff that you gain a lot in practice. But you're right, Tolopilo needs to play. So, like you said, if it is Tolopilo as a 3rd string guy, yeah, I could see ECHL being the case. I think what this really means, Chris, is that Spencer Martin is the NHL backup, but the thing I want to do is kind of project the year after that. Spencer Martin's contract is up at the end of this next season. I think by then the Canucks are hoping that Silovs is ready to be the NHL backup. Maybe at that point, even like a 1A, 1B with Thatcher Demko, but that's shooting really high. Let's just say he's going to be the backup at that point.
Sure.
I think that's what the Canucks are hoping for. And then by then, I think they're really hoping that Tolopilo can start to establish himself as an AHL starter. Because remember, this guy led the Allsvenskan in save percentage last year. He's already, 23 years old? Yeah, 23 years old. So they're going to be hoping that he's going to be able to establish himself in the AHL at some point here. Okay, that's enough goalie talk.